you for coming. Is that someone you can still come in? Hi, I'm Dina Salanow. I'm the director of Oxy Arts here at Occidental College, and I thank everyone for coming today to hang out with Black Salt Collective. And so we have three of the four Black Salt Collective people. So we have Luisa Petrisko, we have Adee Roberson, right, and Grace Perkins. And so who we don't have is Sarah Biscarra Dilley, who is in Oakland.
Yeah, she's getting her PhD at UC Davis.
So that's a really good excuse. So she is here in spirit today. So they're going to come, and they're part of the Oxy Arts Speaker Series. And the Oxy Arts Speaker Series is funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. And what it is, it's for Oxy Arts to curate a five event series where we bring in artists who are from this area and whose work is socially relevant, is talking about the current American moment and identity and how this all comes into play. And we invite these artists to come in and talk about their inspirations, what they do, and why they do what they do here in LA. So this is really exciting. Thank you for coming. A couple short things. We have a lot of programming happening on campus that's free and open to the public over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, actually, visual artist Lily Bernard will be on campus for a keynote in this room at 6 o'clock. On April 10th, we have our second Initiate round. Initiate is a program Oxy Arts has launched to fund and help support 2 student-curated projects that could be about anything. It had to be interdisciplinary in nature. Students needed to work with across disciplines and across departments, and it had to, in some way, shape, or form, be responding either thematically or literally to this year's 75th anniversary of the Japanese American incarcerations during World War II. So students made proposals, and we chose 2 projects, which are amazing. And so the second one happens on the 10th, on April 10th, in the Bengal Room. This Thursday, we have El Payaso coming here. It's with a piece about an American worker who goes to Nicaragua, and it's about an electricity and water crisis. And it's done by this Teatro Milagro, which is a really wonderful Latino / theater company based on the West Coast, and they're based in Clowning and Comedia dell'arte, so that'll be really exciting. That's on Thursday. April 20th, Rafa Esparza is premiering 4 Adobe sculptures that he's been developing with students here in collaboration with the students and our maintenance staff, called From Oral Histories. So that is his opening / closing event on April 20th at 5 o'clock. And feel free to take photos and Insta thing or tweet, whatever. Just if you could tag Oxy Arts so that we can all share that information. Our mailing list is there if you want to sign up on your way out, and also join us on April 25th for our last Oxy Arts Speaker Series with Elizabeth Klein, the Associate Director or Executive Director of the Industry Site-Specific Opera. I'm done. Thank you.
Are we going to use the mic? Or you want to try it? Probably should, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Dina, for having us. We're really excited. And so 3/4 of Black Salt Collective is here today, and we're really happy to be here. So I'm Ana Luisa, and this is Grace Rosario and Adee. And Sarah is not here, but we'll be showing some of her work as well. So we were just going to talk a little bit about what we do. It's probably on your sheet as well. But it's kind of our mission statement that we embody cultural and contemporary narratives. Our work is cultural, but not cultural in the anthropological sense of the word, as cultural art is often seen through a Western lens. Black Salt is about contemporary non-linear identity in which experience results in atmosphere. And we formed in 2012.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about kind of why we formed?
So we formed in 2012, and Adee and I were roommates. We also lived with Sylvia, who performs music under Fanciulla Gentile. And we were all just talking kind of just about how frustrating it was sometimes to make work that was so rooted in identity and also in queerness and also in being female, and how often a lot of times that we didn't feel like there was the proper audience or even venue to show it. And that same day we're like, let's start a collective, and we didn't really know what that even meant. And we wrote this this mission statement actually that same night, and pretty much came up with everything, the name, the mission statement, all kind of in one go. And you and Sarah joined like a year later. And so actually these slides are from one of the first collaborative projects that we did, which was a film that we're going to show today. But yeah, over these 5 years, oh my god, yeah, 5 years. Yeah, we kind of developed what we're about, and we're going to talk about it a little more. Do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I talk about what Black Salt really is, I mean, we collaborate artistically, and then we also just like provide each other with support and share resources, and it's a really valuable thing as women of color, as queer, like these like intersections of identity that we all have. Just like being able to advocate for each other is really powerful. Because as probably most of you know, people out there aren't really advocating for you. So you have to advocate for yourself, and that can be really hard. And when you have sort of a team to do it with, it makes it a lot easier, and we're able to advocate for ourselves better, that we have each other and we have each other's backs. So I find that like our collaboration is artistic, and we make objects together, but we also are just like, the collaboration is really about our relationships to each other. Yeah, so we thought we'd show you guys, to start off, the very first collaboration that we made. Is this really loud?
It's kind of loud.
Too loud? Okay. Sounds loud in my head. This is the first film that we made. It's about 8 minutes long. And yeah, well, you can.
Visualize it after. Yeah, we'll talk about it after, but we'll just show it. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, yeah, sorry, we were laughing a lot. Anyway, yeah, that was our first collaboration together, with all of us. And all of it was shot throughout the Southwest. A lot of it was actually shot on my family's land. My dad is Occidental, so he lives in central Arizona on the reservation, so that was more like saguaros. And my mom is Dene, she's Navajo, and she lives in the Four Corners area. So some of the stuff that was specifically like jeepneys was shot on my family's land. It's like, it's one of the spots where like my great grandma's buried and my grandpas are buried, and it's got like a lot of history. So just seeing that recently, I kind of was like, oh wow, we did that together. So it was one of our first collaborations. We shot it over 2 weeks. We had a bunch of junk in a U-Haul like rolling around.
I think it kind of speaks to this thing of having these like temporary installations or these performances that maybe people aren't witnessing there, but we're creating these performances that are also rituals and for ourselves. And so this was our like, as we talk about just like having like an intimate friendships as a part of the collective, you know, going somewhere that's as significant as like Grace's family's land is really important for all of us to do together, and something that we hope that we can do with each of us, just in part of, yeah, I think that.
Yeah, we can talk about the next thing.
Yeah. So then we're gonna cue up another video. This next piece is called "Where Are You From?" It was a performance piece we did that was commissioned through the lab, San Francisco. And I guess I was gonna say I can contextualize a little bit after. Basically, the lab was given funding to support performance-based or just time-based work that would take place on the corner of 16th Street and Mission, which is right where the BART station is. So it was something that was really site-specific and engaged with the public. And this is a piece that we did in 2015.
Sure. Thank you. And I turned it down, but
Yeah. So that performance, I mean, I think a lot of the things Sarah and I and Adee, like we worked on this piece, and a lot of the things we wanted to bring. This was in San Francisco, and it's also we're talking about as something that's affecting LA as well. As there's lots of rapid gentrification, and neighborhoods are changing really quickly. And often, as an Indigenous person, I can say a lot of times indigeneity is kind of left out of the conversation. I don't really feel like people. It's almost like gentrification is something that's like a new phenomenon or newer phenomenon, but we wanted to kind of invoke this idea of displacement as something born from colonialism, and also have people kind of question their intentions in the communities that they're in. So we, as a collective, wrote these questions, and they were projected behind us as we performed this piece. And it was like 15 minutes long. So it was pretty much just that on a loop. It was almost kind of just like a durational music performance. And,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the parts of where it's like asking the questions, I think those are really make it a way for it to be more expansive, because there's complex ways that people are being here. Like, I'm like a descendant of slaves, then, my ancestors were forced to be here. So it's like that conversation when it comes to colonization and gentrification needs to be talked about. I think it's important to have these questions, because it's like a lot more complex. And there's a lot that we all have to think about, in ways that we're all implicated, in ways that there's just, it's a lot more than that. So I think it kind of speaks to that, and I think the best way that we wanted to do it this way was with sound. Sometimes that is a language that we can all understand and relate to. So.
And also just this corner in particular, if anyone's been to it, like the 16th Street BART station, we were really careful not to disrupt. A lot of people hang out there, or like live there, and so as a collective, we were like, how can we consciously engage with this public space without being like completely abrasive, or or being respectful of the people who are there. So that was a piece we did 2015, and you weren't there. Anna wasn't there. Only spirit.
I was in LA.
So yeah, just a little bit. We're gonna kind of set the framework of some other collaborative stuff we do while showing clips and talking about our work. But last year we curated a show called Visions into Infinite Archives at Stonewright, San Francisco, and it was, how many artists? 30 artists of color, intergenerational, and this is one of the first installations you saw when you walk in. We called this piece Infinite Archives, and yeah.
We had people bring in, family photos, drawings. We played one of our films on a loop. We had prints. Yeah, you see, there's like shoes and like a radio. Like we just kind of had people's shoes. Yeah, and some masks. Yeah, there's a laundry basket. Like we had people that we knew just bring in to contribute to this piece. Another like kind of a ritual of sorts too, or an altar or an offering of the space of bringing all these people together as the first thing you see when you come into the gallery. And that felt really powerful, because it just felt really powerful to have all of that energy from people's personal lives in an installation. And it made it so it wasn't the show, we curated the show and our work is in the show, but also inviting other people as a way to just have all of our work in conversation energetically and physically was just really important for the show. Most of the artists were Black and Indigenous, and that was really important to have that be like the foundation of the show as well.
Yeah, and I think that the show Visions into Infinite Archives was just a comment and an investigation into the archive, and like how archives tend to be compiled by Western institutions and by have like a gaze of white supremacy. So it was our way of sort of like, this is an archive, and it doesn't have to be like neat and tidy and in rows and behind a glass case. And I think like a lot of the works in the show, it was really important that we had super established artists like Lonnie Holly and Post Commodity in the show, and then we had people who literally have never been in an art show ever. We had works that were super sophisticated technologically, and then also works that were super handmade, and Grace talked a lot about how it was important to see the hand in the show, because that's so important to a lot of our folk traditions of like different artists in the show. So yeah, and it ended up being like a super intuitive process. We as a collective, we are all very intuitive people, and the way we work together is really intuitive, so we kind of like, we actually didn't even know like what pieces we had all curated like through the process until like the install day, and like everything was in the room. We're like, actually that looks pretty tight all together. Like, wow, like cool. It actually worked, and there was like the perfect amount of space, so it was awesome. And then we had really awesome performances on the night, the opening night. We wanted to talk a little bit about our friend Jose, who through this show, so he was making these like amulets. You could like request sort of, or put in like a wish or an offering or a prayer, and he would make a specialized amulet for you throughout the night. And he later has become like a really huge collaborator with Grace, and you'll see another video of him later today, some work that he's been doing with Grace. But yeah, that was Visions into Infinite Archives, and it was, it happened. It happened.
It's actually really funny. Jose, just like, I hung out with him the other day, and he told me a story about this piece. And he told me that the performance was supposed to be that he was just making things for people and giving it to them at random. And he said at one point someone came up and whispered in his ear what they wanted. And that he just was like, oh shit. And then he just had to start making amulets for people. And he performed all night. We were like, only half an hour. And then at the end, I was like, where are you still performing? So he performed for like 3 hours making people these amulets for different things like people wanted. And that's kind of what all his work is about, is like imbuing kind of simple materials with the concept of magic. But yeah, I just thought that was like a funny story.
Damn, made to order.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we talked a little bit about our collaborative work, and then we were gonna move into just each of us talking a little bit about our solo practices, which kind of all inform each other, but I'm gonna start. So my name's Anna Luisa, and I also perform under the moniker Jeepneys, which started out as a sort of solo music performance project, and over the years has evolved into, I've been calling it a platform for artistic collaboration, primarily between myself and other Filipino-American artists. And if you don't know what jeepneys are, they're like from the Philippines. They're these beautiful transportation vehicles transformed from World War II Army Jeeps. You can look them up, they're everywhere. They're like the symbol of the Philippines. So one of the recent projects that I did was a collaboration with 2 other Philam artists. This is Michaela Tobin. She's a LA-based opera singer, and also makes noise music under the moniker White Boy Scream. And we made an experimental opera together along with a video artist, Miko Revereza, who is another Filipino-American artist, filmmaker here in LA. So we performed this opera called Body Ship, and we performed it at the Red Cat Now Festival last summer. So I was just gonna show you a trailer of that. My work right now is really focused on subverting the colonial in science fiction. So this is Body Ship trailer. so I got interested in making operas because I think it's really funny. I've never studied opera, and I don't really know much about opera, but such a highbrow art form, and I just felt like it was what I was making, and I didn't know what else to call it, so I started calling them experimental operas, sort of synthesizing all the different multimedia ways that I make work, like with sound and movement and video, and so it seems like a perfect medium for exploring science fiction. So I consider my work sort of an ongoing research project, like a very embodied, non-linear, anti-research project, trying to get the word research out of the hands of the academia and back into the hearts and the bodies of the people. I've sort of been researching myself, and I guess I'm mixed race, I'm Filipino and Slovak, child of immigrants, and just have to do a lot of my own research about my history. So through that research, it just informs my work, and I feel like my performance is sort of exploring things that I'm learning about myself and about my lineage, and then also feeling at the same time really disconnected from it, and feeling like actually I'm just an alien and I live in outer space. So hence, turning my body into a spaceship. I make these bodysuits, which you've been seeing, and I started to sort of think of them as meditations on pre-colonial tattooing practices of the Philippines, and have been doing a lot of research into tattoos and just learning them by drawing them and invoking them in my work, and honoring different tattoos, symbols, and patterns, and starting to think of the bodysuits as sort of this amulet that I wear for performance and for just hanging out, which I often do. But then I started to feel limited also I lately have been feeling like I want to transcend the form of the body more through my work. So there's several ways to do that. One of which is, I make these headpieces, which I feel like are starting to become extensions of the body, moving outside of the body, and they also I've started to draw the tattoo designs on them, and it's basically as an homage and a way to learn, without, a way to learn from, besides just reading a book. And then I started making this 3D avatar, and I think that it's been really healing for me to live in a virtual space, or to work out some issues virtually, because I've been trying VR for the first time recently too, and although I can see it being, it's gonna be whatever, it's a whole thing, I don't want to talk about VR, but I did see the therapeutic aspects of it, and feeling like, wow, this could be really healing if it was used in the right way. I'm building this 3D game right now. Actually, me and my friend Oscar Santos, aka Sister Montos, who's great LA artist in the house. He and I also just shot a 3D video because he came over and was like, "We're gonna shoot a 3D video." I was like, "Nuh-uh," and then we went to Best Buy and got a 3D camera because you could just buy them now. Then we walked there and bought it, and then we shot a video. So don't let anything stop you. Yeah, anyway, okay, I'm not going to talk much longer. I'm just going to say that, so for me, the virtual world that I can create is a way for me to sort of live my dreams, which is to be in a tropical outer space paradise like this. And I'm just going to show an excerpt of this. You don't need to turn off the light.
The work I kind of do is a little bit more like 2D, although I'm moving a little bit into performance. I'm going to show some of that. But the work on the left is a mask made by my father, Oakland and Perkins, and he kind of comes into a lot of my collaborations a lot. Like I've been collaborating probably, he was in Infinite Archives, we did a series of paintings together, and we just did another series of paintings that I showed in San Francisco in January. But he did the mask on the left, and it's called Snake Brain. And it's made with all found objects off the Gila River Indian Reservation, which is south of Phoenix. So that's his mask. And a little backstory, I've really been thinking about the relationship to my dad and why intergenerational and familial collaboration is so important. But growing up, my father was an activist, and he protested this mascot called the Fighting Illini at the University of Illinois. Basically, the mascot was kind of this fake Indian that went by the name like Fighting Illini, and I can't remember the name of the actual character, but they would come out, someone would come out at halftime wearing buckskin, and they would smoke out of a fake peace pipe and do all these horrible things. So my father, who was a student at the time, later a professor, was someone who protested this. There's a whole documentary about it called In Whose Honor, and it took 20, almost 30 years for it to finally stop. So it still exists unsanctioned. So kind of growing up, more recently I've been thinking about that a lot in my relationship to my father, who lives on the res now. He works at a domestic violence shelter, and he doesn't really make a lot of work for people to see. So, and then inevitably he made weird masks, and then I made a weird mask, and I was like, damn, I'm like doing stuff my dad does. So we started to collaborate, and these are the first series of paintings we've ever done. We did a show in 2014 called Thin Leather, and a lot of them were in Infinite Archives. So kind of the way Black Salt works too is we have our personal work and our personal projects, but we kind of see them as all being of one. So all this stuff is shown usually in like the context of Black Salt. So these are two paintings. They were all on paper, 18 by 24. And a lot of the show itself was about language. Being indigenous and between the two tribes I'm always trying to negotiate what it means to basically re-indigenize or like learn my language again, especially when the fracture's so recent. My grandparents all went to boarding school, so it's really recent trauma for me. So doing this painting project with my father was kind of a way of like unraveling that. So yeah, kind of moving out of just making a painting for a painting and making a mask is just an object. I finally just recently did a residency in Sedona and finally thought of ways to kind of embody these as well. And so I did this residency in Sedona, and being in Sedona was interesting. Sedona kind of has this certain like mystique to it for a lot of people, where there's like there's like this healing element. People want to go there, they want to go see a psychic, they want to do all these things. And when I was at this particular residency as a Native person, it was really hard because a lot of people were engaging with the landscape in this way that felt kind of complicated. It was more of like a place for people to discover themselves, where I was like looking more at the historical aspects of the land. And so being there, I did this performance called We Belong Together. And these are kind of rehearsal shots. So Jose, who was in the performance shot earlier, was another resident, and we collaborated on this with another artist who's on the left named Ryan Dennison. So Ryan Dennison, we were told not to have visitors, and I brought my dad and Ryan Dennison. So like Ryan came down, and in one day we did this performance called We Belong Together. I'm gonna show like a really, really rough video of it. And kind of like what Adee is saying is this performance wasn't really done for an audience. We did it kind of as a group with like a certain intention of kind of leaving an offering to the space that we felt was really complicated. So Ryan here is in he does a character called Paul and Boy, who's it's a very important character in the Navajo creation story. And what we did was I'm not sure the video, but kind of all the material we used were more or less like Ryan's archive of indigenous-based records, and one's on the right is called the Lamanite Generation. So a lot of the records we were playing were explicitly from the 60s and 70s through BYU, the Mormon College. They had this program called the Indian Placement Student Program, where the whole goal was to like socialize Native students. And so they would bring Native kids off the res, and they'd be like, oh, you can make a record. And actually what's really funny is the Lamanite generation isn't only Native people, it's actually like everyone. So everyone dressed as a Native person put on this record. But so these were the kind of things that we used in this performance as a musician, or as instruments to kind of activate. And I'm gonna show like a loose clip of it, and it's just so everyone knows it's a noise set, so it's gonna be very loud. That's kind of just like a little excerpt of, so that's just like a little excerpt of that performance. And also so there are 3 parts. One person played all the indigenous records, and we named it after Richie Valens because we were talking about also surpassing borders and not like prescribing to like indigeneity is like a certain concept that because Jose is from Jalisco, and then Ryan and I both being Dene, we wanted to have this like very intersectional, intentional performance that was about indigenous bodies in motion. We were talking about how a lot of times as indigenous people were seen as like very static, linear people. So to bring in kind of like all of this these like older things and activate it in this really intentional performance was something that we want to do. And it happened in a cathedral, and everyone at the residency wanted to watch it, and we were just like, no. So it was like something that we did really intentionally for us, and also there's two people who would stand in the back, and those people were playing contact mic'd typewriters. So the idea was really to activate language. Like, what does it mean when you use language in a specific way to kind of send or invoke these certain messages out as offerings? So that's kind of just a performance or a way that I'm like starting to do more expansive work. How do I do? Yeah. And then just the last slide is this is just kind of how I bring all of those elements now back into my work. It's no longer just showing a painting. It's like so I showed this painting in January, and then all the paintings beneath it are pieces I did with my father. So it's kind of like all of this stuff to me, I don't consider these collaborations as independent of my work. I consider them all kind of the same thing, and I see them as all kind of having different levels of importance at different points in time throughout. But like that painting I started in Sedona, I used it as the backdrop where we played on it, and then I brought it into a gallery context, so kind of shifting the narratives and allowing kind of the archive to like deepen a little bit, and then bringing plants from like my indigenous home into the gallery space, and also work that I worked on my father was really important to me. So those are just kind of like a little bit what my work touches on is land, language, collaboration. And I'll pass to you.
We just wanted to show some of Sarah's work as well, since she couldn't be here. So she works also as multimedia. She was actually the one singing and playing the drum in that earlier video that was taking place outdoors. This is some of her 2D collage work and photography. And we have one of her videos to show. And, oh crap, I think I lost okay, here's her website. So Sarah's here with us, even though she's not. I'll just read this. Her interdisciplinary process explores the spaces between the worlds, between blood sickness and bloodlines, between grief and joy, between body and land. Being raised in Chumash, Chicano, and queer family traditions, between urban and rural environments, directly informs her understandings of embodiment and place as spatial, temporal, and grounded in relationship. Anchored in the intention and practices of indigenous resurgence, through contradiction, complexity, and communion, she uses found footage, cut paper, archival material, handwork, language, and thread to trace landscapes of resilience and shifting relationships of belonging, displacement, and home. So actually, I mean, she's actually the one who's from LA. I mean, her people are from here. I live here, Adee lives here, and Grace lives up in Oakland. And then this is a video. What was the translation again? She's made of flowers. This video is translates as made of flowers. And it's in Chumash language, Sispeyu Neat.
So I'm Adee Roberson. I came into my art practice, I feel like things kind of solidified for me as being a punk kid in New Orleans and living in a black city and being a feminist punk kid. So seeing a movie Born in Flames when I think I saw it in like 2003. That was when I lived in New Orleans, and it was the first time I had seen a movie with black queer women in it who were weird and experimental and like riding bikes and dressing really cool and listening to post-punk and the Slits, and so I was just like, this is just, it's the best thing ever. So this person in the film, her name is J.C. Honey Campbell, and she became kind of this this person I felt like I had this connection to that I didn't know. And at the time then, she was actually still alive, but she passed away in 2010, I think. And I contacted the person who made the film, Lizzie Borden, and we ended up building this kind of connection based on this person that I didn't know, but I felt connected to. And so I kind of make a lot of work to honor her, and started off making a lot of work around portraits, archive portraits, and taking them and making screen prints of them. Or this is a Rizzo print. Kind of to show the complexities of blackness through color and kind of raw energy. This is just like a picture of my studio. So which was in my living room at my old house. So I just wanted to show that because some of the process, the prints later became collages and printing out photos of people I knew, people I like there's an image of Larry Levan in there who's a DJ in New York in the 80s, DJ house music, and yeah, so this is an installation that I did during a residency. I started recently doing less about maybe portraits of people and more of these kind of portals that became these ways to transmute grief into joy and black joy, and what does that mean and what does that look like? It's really abstract, and I think there's something peaceful in that abstraction that I think that black people deserve, and so I try to create these spaces that are an atmosphere and environment that you can go into and maybe feel that. So this, you can walk into it, you can kind of go into it, and I've kind of been leaning more towards that lately. I'm also a healer too, so I love crystals and creating what those spaces feel like soulless, that I think is really important. And this photo is taken by photographer Texas Isaiah, who's here, and a few of us went to Joshua Tree, and this is another portal. I think thinking of a collaborative aspect with people in your life that you care about, witnessing or being a part of these temporary installations that are these kind of portals of our experience. It's like that day we saw the full moon rise into the sky, and I thought that was really powerful, just because I come from a working class family, and I never thought I would have access to just getting to travel and getting to see so much that I do. And so this is kind of a part of that process for me of transmuting that energy. And then the last thing I'm going to show is a video. So this video is also about collaboration as well. There's no sound in the first 2 minutes, so I'm kind of just going to talk over it. But Grace has been doing that. I do a live performance project called Tropic Green, where I sing and I play synthesizer. And Grace has been so awesome and was like, you need to have a video in it. And so since Grace, we live together, and she basically knows the inside of my mind. She's like, yeah, for better or for worse, she's like, you need some palm trees and some black people dancing and just bright colors. That's one of my prints too. So bringing it back to even in our personal practices, we all still rely on so many other people, each other, and the people in our extended like community to help us to facilitate healing and to process our own work. Like I think there's something important about me having an Indigenous woman like gather this like footage of the Black diaspora and we work on this project together. I think that's healing for us in so many ways, and to like also play music together. And if she has a project, then I can do something on that too. We just like it's all like a part of it's all part of healing. It's all a part of.
It's like leave a dollar, take a dollar. With you should talk about what this video is.
Oh, I made this video for, I went to South Africa for the Black Portraitures Conference, and I was on a panel with my friends Essence Hardin and Sadie Barnett, and we did a panel about Black abstraction and Black joy, and all showed some of our work. So that was another way that I was collaborating with other people that weren't necessarily in the collective, but again, we're like all connected and supporting each other. Both their works there were also like kind of abstract images of family, and like this is like Willie Ninja voguing into the moon. So just stuff like that. And so a song will start soon, and it's one of my songs, so I just kind of I talked a little bit about Black abstraction at the beginning of this in South Africa, and then the song came on, and so that is what will happen in the second year. I don't remember where.
It'll come on in any minute.
Yeah. So that's one of my paintings that now has the. Questions, yeah. If people want to ask questions, feel free to.
So this may be for you, Grace. I really loved the mask And I tend to think about masks a lot, and for my own work, I think, well, is masking a part of denial, especially given the era we live in, kind of mass appropriation? Or do masks allow you to assert a counter-narrative, sort of apart from kind of straightforward identity question?
Yeah, I think a mask is transformative. Just from like the working from an indigenous perspective, masks are used ceremonially, or they're used to kind of they're used more as like vehicles to transform. So I don't perceive them as kind of like just for me personally, my own work, I don't perceive them as something as kind of like hiding. I feel like when I wear them, or when we all wear them, it's very much this like transformative embodied experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. My question is for Adee. The portals that, I've noticed that you drew portals in a couple of different pieces, and then I noticed that they were also triangular. Do you have any relation to those two, or is that just like how it comes out?
Yeah, I think that's just how it comes out. It's like it's like automatic writing or something. It's like it started off as like certain lines, and then it just evolves into these different shapes or symbols that I actually have no idea where they come from. But I think they're connected to something, you know, that has to do with ancestral memory or like things that I still haven't maybe discovered. I'm pretty sure they're from that, but I don't know exactly. I think a lot about maybe the symbol of the Kanaga. It's like the Dogon symbol for like primordial life force, and it's like this kind of shape, and it's also used in mass actually for rituals around grief and funerals and death and stuff. But I feel like kind of as someone who was born in America and has family that's Caribbean, also has family that's Black and American and from the hood, like it's kind of a gathering of memory things that I don't necessarily know, but I'm just putting it out there. So I don't know if that answers.
Could you guys talk about what you're working on collectively as what your next project is?
We forgot
we're
working on a book. We forgot to talk about it. So we have a book coming out.
Like in 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on a book that's kind of, I feel like a lot lately we've been having conversations just about what Black Soul's become. We kind of, more of like, yeah, we said like a platform to like elevate other people. So this book is about it has like our work and us in conversation, but a lot of the book itself is us in conversation with different artists. Like Adee interviewed Lauren Halsey, I interviewed Jean Smith, so it's like very intergenerational. There's like particular people that we brought in that we wanted to have a conversation. There's writing, interviews, photos, images, pages.
200 pages.
Ink. Yeah. There's a cover involved. But yeah, it's gonna come out. We're gonna actually have a release party. When is it?
June 29th here.
Yeah.
At Peter
At
Performance
Peter
Space.
Space. Yeah.
We'll probably DJ or food and stuff.
I was curious if there are any other mediums that you haven't worked with, either individually or as a collective, that you want to see yourself working with in the future.
Like,
Come on,
I feel like is there a medium I haven't worked with?
Cloning.
What are all the mediums?
We've done.
We've done
We kind of do. We do everything. Yeah.
Done too much.
We're even
Yeah.
doing 3D.
We need to like actually like reel it in.
And it's like everyone does everything.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
know.
we're cooking, we're making a sculpture.
We're like giving a massage before
A lot of chakras, like we
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teaching children, like.
But I do think as a collective, we talked about doing a little bit more, because a lot of because of the distance and just the way we work, we've been talking about having a little bit more intentional time. So slowing down and doing a little bit like more like, we talked about like long-term collaborations between the four of us is something that we want to work towards.
I mean, the book is really new. I've never put out a book either. I mean, we've all done zines, so it's like kind of like.
It's like a big,
fancy zine.
yeah.
So y'all art, it really strays from the mainstream, especially since like y'all stray from this idea of colonialization, and the idea of looking at culture through a Western lens. But have y'all ever tried to like turn your art into mainstream? Like, have you ever thought about that? Like switching what the idea of mainstream is?
It's a good question. I don't know if we intentionally try to not be mainstream. I think we're just being ourselves, and we're weird. I think like we've never really sat down and had that conversation. We've been sometimes like we just got an email from like a magazine that's kind of big, or more I would consider more mainstream.
It was for like to do something with vodka.
Yeah, it
Like,
felt
we were
really
like,
corporate. It was a really corporate thing, and it
It's
just
like,
didn't sit well with us.
We're just like, and for many reasons, it's like you have to like, in ways you have to take accountability for your community too, and maybe not being like in a brand that's giving alcohol to people that maybe has not been good for many of our communities. You know, we were just like, we thought we're like, oh, should we take this? Maybe we get a check.
Yeah.
But I think we were just like, no, that's not. Yeah, I don't think it's. I don't know if we thought. Yeah, we haven't really had that.
I think we all also
think we
come.
can
Well,
be.
I mean, I don't know, but me and Adee definitely came from punk, like, and that was so like anti-mainstream in a way, or like it was just so DIY, and then I think like we had to kind of get away from that. It took years, like to sort of disentangle that, but
And I guess there's different, like, do you mean like mainstream in the art world, or like corporations? Because I feel like those are two kind of different things, right?
I
I
think
think there's a lot of different.
I'm talking about mainstream in terms of like media coverage. So like, yeah, so like not exactly branding yourself or putting yourself into a corporate business, but in terms of like the way not the way people see, I don't know how to put this, but it's like, I don't know how to put this into words, but it's like,
No, you're doing it.
You're great.
like mainstream media, so like, for
Yeah.
example, like, your stuff will be like BuzzFeed kind of mainstream, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like, so it's like, y'all still doing you, but changing the idea of what mainstream is.
I see
So-
what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah. Like trying to do it intentionally, like to reach more
like,
people
insert
with
ourselves.
but no, without changing our message. Yeah. It's not really a conversation that we've had.
We're all like hermits.
I know.
And
We
we're
don't
just
know
like,
what's going on.
yeah,
Yeah, we're
we-
like, what's happening?
Yeah.
We like look out the window. We're like, we shut it and then like go back.
Go back to like working on stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers it.
I guess following up with that, how has it been navigating through these institutions that were primarily not made for us and about us, with the kind of work that you are creating? How has that process been?
Complex.
A little hard. Is that too fast to answer? I mean, we were just talking about this. It's like always gonna be troubling. Like, people aren't gonna automatically have a certain level of, I don't know, a certain baseline knowledge of things that are appropriate, or even, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it's hard. I think being an artist of color, it's like sometimes you're like, oh, they're totally gonna get me, and then you work with someone, you're like, oh, that's totally tokenizing. So it's just a matter of like working with integrity. And I think that's what Black Solid is like we built the support system for ourselves to kind of hold each other when those things do happen. Because they happen. Like all the time.
I think
And-
they're
And they've all happened to us individually when
Or
we
together.
didn't have each other, and it was a lot harder because, like, I don't know, I've let people take advantage of me, or I haven't spoken up for myself, but then, like, there's times when we have each other, and then we can speak out because, like, we're not alone, and that feels really good. I don't know, I mean, we were at the Kerry James Marshall talk the other day, and he critiqued the institution so well. And then also at the end he said, but we all want to be here. It's complex. I don't know.
And I think those institutional spaces too, there's there's a lot, it's the majority of people, I feel like, that just are not, I don't know, I just haven't felt a connection with the majority of people. And then there'll be like one person or a few people who really, I don't know, I feel like I can really connect to and be like honest and be authentic and genuine. I think a lot of that stuff has to do with people kind of, I don't know how to say it, you know, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like, I don't know, it's like brands and social ladders and all these things, but how do you do those things so you reach wider people but still be your authentic self? And I feel like that's kind of a struggle to do in those spaces, but I honestly don't know how to do anything else, so.
You guys had the kind of your like artist statement at the beginning, but I was wondering if you've written like anything like together more at length, like a kind of manifesto type of thing, or even kind of piggybacking off that, like if you wrote about the experiences doing the collective. Like I could just like imagine how empowering it would be for a lot of people to like know that this exists and like how to reach those people, you know, like if there's maybe just writing about the experience itself, or yeah, thought about that. Or
We haven't done much collective writing. I mean, the book is sort of compiling of writing. I think we try to like, I mean, I think that the mission statement talks about experience resulting in atmosphere, and we're like, I think we're just all of our processes are just not very didactic. And that's kind of why we all work together and we vibe with each other so well. And like, I think like we like to let the work speak for itself, and even if it's like, maybe not everybody gets it, you know, it'll, you know, it'll keep permeating the
It's like more of a visceral thing.
yeah. And I think like what we're trying to make the book is, it's like if you read the whole thing from front to back, then maybe you'll have like an idea of the manifesto within like all of those pages. And
Maybe other people for the book, other people writing about us too, like in the intro. So I think that'll help kind of like people seeing it from the outside and what they're taking from that, and that being a part of like people writing about people's work is really important. And I don't know, I write, but I prefer just making stuff.
When you showed the street performance, you spoke about like consciously engaging with the people that live there and not disrupting it. Like, what did that look like, maybe for that particular piece, and what did that mean to you?
I mean, I think when we did it, it was just thinking about sound and thinking about like taking up space. I mean, there's so many different iterations of the performance series. Like some people did like a noise set, and some people did like a procession where they like went around. And so we were very conscious to almost kind of, we were like, okay, let's like take up as little space as we can, like have a zone. Like we wanted to just make it like a clean setup and a clean breakdown. And we wanted, I mean, obviously the questions I would say is like we wanted to have people be engaged, but we didn't want to be so, I think again, it's like we try not to be so literal and didactic where we're like doing something where we're actually asking those questions verbally, but having kind of this like ongoing thing for people to enter and exit it as it's going, so.
yeah, it was, you guys set it up so that audience could choose to participate or not to participate. They weren't forced to participate because it wasn't like right in the major walkway or something.
Yeah, it wasn't like we were gonna like, and we talked about that, like we didn't wanna like jump in someone's face or like have some sort of thing where we're handing stuff out. We wanted to very much have this thing that was like experiential and that it could be kind of ongoing and non-linear and consensual. Yeah, and consensual and the music itself, you know, we wanted it to have like a certain kind of level where it wasn't getting too disruptive for a person. Yeah.
People were just getting off work and like being like, whoa, what's this?
Yeah.
You know,
Most of the people were just like, what the
yeah,
hell?
they were just like, wait, like I think the last part of it, a guy walked by, he's like, what the? It's like getting off part, he's like, all right, well.
But yeah,